Have you ever listened to someone describe a major event and realised nobody said anything? No conversation, no dialogue, no memorable exchange, nothing? And once you notice it, it's hard to ignore. Hi, I'm Steve Van Apron, and today we're looking at statement credibility analysis, the missing conversation test. But before we start, no single behaviour proves deception. We always look for patterns across multiple behaviours and surrounding contexts. Okay, so let's get into it. Think about the biggest moments in your life: a serious argument, a job interview, a first date, a marriage proposal, a confrontation, or a family dispute. What do most of those events have in common? People talk, sometimes a lot. Conversations are often central to major experiences, which is why researchers involved in criteria-based content analysis became interested in interaction detail, particularly the ability to recall conversations. Now, let me be clear, nobody remembers every word perfectly. That's not expectation. The expectation is something much simpler. Do they remember the actual interaction? Let me show you. Imagine someone says, "My wife accused me of having an affair." Now, that's a significant event. Naturally, you might ask, what did she say? Now, imagine the response is, "We discussed it." That's it, we discussed it. No dialogue, no remembered exchange, no emotional interaction. Interesting. Now compare that to this. She looked at me and said, "Just tell me the truth." And I remember thinking this was going to be a disaster. Notice the difference? The second response feels lived because it contains interaction. Researchers Stella and Conklin found that genuine accounts often contain conversational fragments and interaction detail. Not because people are trying to sound credible, but because conversations are often memorable, especially emotional ones. Let's look at another example. Imagine somebody says, "I was fired from my job." Okay, big event. Now imagine you ask, "What happened?" And they respond, "We had a meeting." That's not much. Now compare it with, "My manager said," this isn't easy for me to say. And the moment he said that, I knew exactly what was coming. Now, which one sounds like a remembered experience? The second one, of course, because real experiences often include memorable exchanges. Again, this isn't proof. Some people genuinely struggle to recall conversations. Some people remember emotions more than words. Some people are naturally brief. That's why context matters. But when somebody describes a highly emotional or significant event and the conversation seems completely absent, that becomes interesting, because major life events rarely happen in silence. Let's look at one final example. Imagine somebody says, "We had a huge argument." Naturally, you might ask, "What was said?" And they respond, "We disagree." Now, that's not really an argument, that's a summary. Real arguments often contain words, phrases, accusations, threats, emotional reactions, and that's exactly why interaction detail becomes part of credibility research, because genuine memories often preserve parts of those exchanges. Not perfectly, not anything else, but usually naturally. So let's recap. Watch for missing dialogue, missing interactions, major events described without conversation, and summaries instead of remembered exchanges, and stories where nobody seems to speak, because real life is full of conversation, and sometimes the missing conversation tells its own story. Just some quick references: Stella and Conklin, CBCA research, Undeutsch hypothesis, and Albert Fridge, detecting lies and deceit. If you found this useful, subscribe to the channel below and share this video with someone who you think needs to see it. Because once you understand human behavior, you start hearing the truth very differently.